You know, every financial system you see, the banks, the stock markets, the cash in your wallet, it has an invisible twin, a shadow ledger. You won't find it in any official report, but trust me, it's the real backup generator for civilization. It's the economy that sparks to life the moment all the official promises get broken and the money you thought was safe becomes worthless paper. So let's get into it. What really happens when the lights go out on the official economy?
And that quote really gets to the heart of it, doesn't it? We're all taught that money is a fact, that it's as real as the ground beneath our feet. But it's not. It's a shared belief. It's a collective piece of fiction we all agree to tell ourselves. And today, we're going to talk about that exact moment when the belief shatters, and a new, much more honest story gets written. Not in some fancy government building, but out there, in the shadows.
So, here's how we're going to break this all down. First, we're going to define these two parallel economies. Then, we'll go back in time to witness the absolute death of trust in Weimar Germany. After that, you'll see how this isn't just a one-off thing. It's a pattern that repeats. We'll explore the deep, generational scars it leaves behind. And finally, we'll pull it all into the present and see what this shadow ledger looks like right now, today.
All right, so let's jump right into our first section, the two economies. This is the core concept you need to grasp. See, every society at all times is running two economic systems at the same time. You've got the official story, and then you've got the one that actually ensures survival.
On one hand, you have the official economy. Think of it as this incredibly complex machine built on layers and layers of abstract ideas, laws, banking policies, and the most fragile piece of them all, confidence. But the shadow economy, man, it strips all of that away. It's primal. It's the difference between a banker's promise and a sack of potatoes. It runs on what people actually need, the trust between two people looking each other in the eye, and assets you can actually hold in your hand.
And that's really the best way to think about it. The shadow economy isn't some kind of bug or a glitch in the system. It is the backup system. It's the raw, unfiltered default setting for human trade that we've been using for thousands of years, way before anybody ever dreamed up a central bank.
Okay, Section 2, the death of trust. To really get a gut feeling for how quickly a modern economy can just completely fall apart, we have to go to one place, Weimar Germany, 1923. And listen, this isn't just some dusty history lesson. This is the textbook example of how a government can betray its own people by destroying their money.
Just look at this number, 200 billion. That's what a single loaf of bread cost by November of 1923. Could you imagine going to the store with a wheelbarrow full of cash just to buy lunch? That was reality. I mean, this wasn't just inflation. This was the total, absolute annihilation of a currency. The German mark had stopped being money and had basically become the punchline to a very, very dark joke.
But what's really terrifying is just how fast this all happened. In January, a loaf of bread was 250 marks. By July, it was 3.5 million. Just 4 months later, 200 billion. An entire nation's savings, the work of a lifetime for millions of people, was wiped out in less than a year. It got so bad that people literally started using stacks of money as wallpaper. Kids used them as building blocks. Why? Because the paper money was cheaper than actual toys or cheaper than the firewood you'd burn to stay warm.
So, when the official money failed, what did people do? What did they turn to? They went back to basics. They used things that had real, actual value. The shadow ledger completely took over. A gold wedding ring wasn't just a piece of jewelry anymore. It could feed your family for a month. A single carton of American cigarettes was a more stable way to store your wealth than an entire bank account. This is the shadow economy in its rawest, purest form.
All right, Section 3, the repeating pattern. And let's be clear. Weimar Germany is far from the only example of this. In fact, once you know what to look for, you start to see this exact same pattern play out again and again and again across decades and continents whenever an official system becomes a lie.
I mean, it's the same story, just with a different coat of paint. In the Soviet Union, the official lie was socialist equality for all. The shadow reality? A huge black market where American blue jeans and a bottle of vodka were way better than the ruble. Or take Argentina in 2001. The official promise was, don't worry, your bank deposits are safe. The reality?
The government froze every single account, and the blue dollar traded on the street became the real economy overnight. And in Venezuela, as the bolivar just inflated into dust, people started weighing out specks of gold on their kitchen scales just to buy food.
And this is where you find the great unspoken irony in all of this. The very same governments that are out there publicly screaming about how these black markets are criminal, well, they often secretly rely on them to keep things from completely falling apart. It's the shadow economy that feeds the soldiers, that finds the fuel for the trucks, that stops society from sliding into total chaos. It becomes this unacknowledged, unofficial partner of the failing state.
Okay, so Section 4, the generational scars. You see, an event like this, it doesn't just end when a new currency comes out. A full-blown financial collapse isn't like a bad storm you just clean up after. It leaves these deep psychological wounds. It fundamentally rewires a society's DNA for generations to come.
It literally creates a new kind of citizen from the ashes. First, they lose all faith in institutions. They learn the hard way that the government is not there to protect them. That loss of trust quickly hardens into this deep, permanent skepticism of every single official promise. So they're forced to adapt, becoming fluent in the unwritten rules of survival. And ultimately, they learn to put their trust not in abstract systems, but in the people and the networks they can actually count on.
And trust me, this isn't just some abstract theory. That trauma is exactly why modern Germany has an almost allergic reaction to inflation. The memory of the Soviet system's lies is why so many people in Eastern Europe instinctively get that every official rule has an unofficial workaround. These aren't just data points on a chart. They are deep, painful scars carried by millions of people.
And that brings us to today. Section 5, today's shadow ledger. You know, it's so tempting to look at all this and think, well, that was then. Things are different now. But that would be a huge mistake. The tools have changed, yeah, the technology is new, but the fundamental game remains exactly the same.
You just have to listen to the language they use. It's a masterclass in spin, really. When assets get frozen, it's sold to us as a necessary emergency measure. The big push towards programmable money that can be monitored and restricted, oh, that's just a move toward transparency. Runaway inflation that's eating away your savings? Don't worry, it's just transitory. It is the exact same playbook, just wrapped up in a sleek, modern digital package.
And just like the methods of control have gotten an upgrade, so have the tools of the shadow ledger. The black market isn't gone. No way. It's just moved online. The sketchy deal in a back alley has been replaced by end-to-end encrypted chats. The secret handshake is now a peer-to-peer crypto transaction that bypasses the banking system completely. The fundamental human drive to create a parallel economy that can't be frozen, censored, or inflated away is just adapting to the 21st century.
But you know what the most telling sign of all is? It doesn't come from the rebels. It comes from the people running the system itself. While they are publicly telling us to have faith in their currencies and digital assets, what are they doing behind closed doors? Well, central banks all over the world have been buying physical gold at a rate we haven't seen in over 50 years. Why? Because it's the ultimate just-in-case asset. It's their hedge against the very system they're in charge of. They're quietly adding to their own shadow ledger, and that might be the loudest signal of all.
So what's the real takeaway here? What's the bottom line? It's that the shadow economy isn't some external enemy attacking the system. It's a mirror. It just reflects the official system's own flaws, its own broken promises, and its own failures. When the official economy becomes a tool of control, the shadow economy becomes the last measure of truth.
And that leaves every single one of us with one final and kind of uncomfortable question. If that official story about your money, the one built on confidence and government promises, if it suddenly just ends, what will you be left holding? What do you own that has a story of its own, value that exists completely separate from any system? Because that is your real economy. That is your entry on the shadow ledger.